All right, so what we're going to do, we're going to take a look at sports. I want to know a little bit about sports or activities, a little bit more about you and what you do. So I want you to take out your device and go to the polling website, and I've got a poll for you. Do you play a sport, or are you in the band, the choir, the play, some other type of school-related activity? So do you play sports, or are you in a school-related activity like band, choir, play, color guard? I know I'm probably missing something, but you do some of this stuff. Give you a couple more seconds to answer. Anybody need more time? All right, so about 75% of you are involved in some type of activity. The next thing I want to know, what is it? So what sport or activity, band, club, play, whatever it is that you do, what is it that you do? It's pretty awesome. Choir's beating out everything.
Choir's awesome.
Our choir's good here.
It is.
Seriously.
Extraordinary.
I go to the concert at Christmas time every year, and I try to make it to the spring one.
It's my favorite.
I think the spring one at the end of the year is really cool. I'm usually kind of crazy busy around that time, so I don't always make it. What? All right, so lots of you run track. There are a lot of lacrosse people here, a lot of soccer. Baseball's pretty big. We've got swimming, cross country, hockey, bowling, football, whatever. We got lots of stuff up here. We've got council, Congress, skating. Got lots of stuff up there. So what you're telling me is you guys are very involved in stuff. Now, for those of you who play a sport, what happens if you miss practice? What happens if you miss practice? Run laps. Yeah. Does that work if you like to run? Not a very good punishment. What happens if you skip practice? That's playing time. Get benched. The first set. Relax. How many of you, how many of you play a sport? Just put your hand. How many of you, if you miss practice, you have to run laps? How many of you, if you miss practice, you're not playing in the next game? How many? That's a lot of people, right? How many of you, if you miss practice, you're at least going to sit part of the beginning of the game? Okay. Why is that? Why do coaches bench people who miss practice? You play sport? What sport? Lacrosse. So if you miss practice, you sit on the bench. Part of the game, why? Okay, good. So sign up, lesson in sports. Do you play sport? Which? Where do you play? And what happens if you miss practice? That's playing time. Why? Okay. Sport? But what happens when you miss practice? Why? Well, why does commitment matter? I mean, why do all these coaches keep benching you? Who cares if you're committed or not?
They want us to work hard.
They want you to work hard. So if you don't work hard, you don't play. Other sports. Play sport. Baseball. What happens if you skip practice? Better. And you don't like running.
practice, you don't get punished, but you fall behind a lot, and you really pay for it the next workout.
Yeah.
Channel surfing.
Channel surfing, that's a good sport, right? Fair enough. So those of you who miss practice, what's the real reason behind it? I mean, yeah, there's a commitment thing. But what is Coach trying to tell you? You're not. So you're not getting better. You're not improving on yourself. Good. You're part of a team. You're part of something bigger than yourself. And if you skip practice, you show that doesn't matter, right? At the end of the day, if you're not improving, essentially, you're not getting better. You're not doing well in your sport. You're not doing well in what you do. And one of the difficult things is if you're not getting better, then there's no reason to play you. Because you're going to slow the team down. You're going to hurt the team. Practice is the way we get better at stuff. I mean, even look at the Super Bowl. I mean, who knows why I didn't play, but Belichick benched some players, probably because maybe not that they missed practice, but maybe they didn't practice as hard. I mean, this happens even at the professional level, and the reason why that happens is because if you don't practice, you're not getting any better. You're hurting yourself. You're not developing those fundamental skills that you need to be successful at your sport. And so, coach will sit you on the bench. I think in many ways, school is just like a sport. School takes effort, just like a sport. And if you don't work at your sport, you don't get any better. Like if I skipped practice tomorrow, I'm not getting any better at the sport. And we've already talked about the idea of effort versus ability. We know that you're not born with the natural ability to be awesome. So if you skip practice, it means you're not getting better. And if you're not getting better, you're not putting in the effort, coach is going to bench you. And the reason why coach benches you is not just to teach you a lesson, not just to punish you, not just because you're part of a team in something bigger, better, but it's that you're not getting any better. You're not getting good at what you do. If you don't practice, you're not improving. And I think school is the same way. If you don't practice in school, you're not improving. You're not getting better. In many ways, sports are just like school. There's not a whole lot of difference except what you're learning. In a sport, almost all sports, you get a playbook, right? You got a set amount of plays that you got to follow. What's the playbook in school? Textbook. Good. Your textbook is essentially your playbook. Your textbook and your notes are what you use to get the basic information about how the game works in school. And then, of course, in sports, you have chalk talks. Coach sits you around, goes over the strategy, goes over the game plan. What's the chalk talk in school? Lectures, discussions, stuff that we do in classes. Then, in most sports, you, of course, practice. So you put all this stuff that you learn theoretically from the playbook and the chalk talk, you put it into action, you practice it. What's practice for school? Homework. And then, of course, we've got game day, right? What's game day in school? Tests, final exams, test quizzes. But, you know, we've all got this framework in our head that we don't have to practice for school. We don't have to study. We don't have to go over our notes or pay attention in class or do homework. We're just, but then we show up on game day without studying, without taking notes, without reading the textbook, and then we expect to do well. And then we get mad and frustrated when we don't. I'm not good at civics because I'm not a civics person. I wasn't born with the ability to do civics. It's just you didn't put in the effort, right? And this goes with all your classes. It's not just a civics thing. With all your classes, you got to put in the effort. You gotta work at it. You got to practice. Every day you got to go over your notes. Every day you got to read your textbook. Every day, and you don't have to spend hours and hours doing it. But spend 5 minutes a day looking over your old notes. Spend 5 minutes a day trying to comprehend the playbook. And if you don't understand it, come ask for help. That's what class is for. That's what before school, after school. I'm here to help you be successful, but you got to put in the practice. You got to put in the work. In many ways, school is just like a sport, yet we don't treat it that way. And the ironic thing is, I hope all of you go professional at whatever sport it is that you play, or if you do band or choir or any of that stuff too. I hope you go professional at that. But the reality is, very few of you ever will. We put out some pretty good teams here at Canton. I mean, our football team pretty top notch. All three football teams are part, well, 2 of the 3, pretty top notch football teams. Always make it to district playoffs. Always do pretty well into regionals, even few state playoffs in the last few years. But yet, as good as our athletes are, as good as our football teams are, on average, maybe 1, 2, 3 guys might make it to go on and play college football at a pretty high level. Probably on our teams, maybe 5 or 6 guys go on to play college football, and maybe 1 or 2 of them will make a Division I school that's got any good type of reputation, a Big Ten school or an SEC school. And out of those 1 or 2, even fewer of them go on to actually play at the school that they make the team on. And out of those, even fewer of them will go on to play professional football. In the 10 years that I've been teaching here, we've maybe had 10 guys go on to play college football at a pretty high level. And out of those 10, most of them sat the bench. I can really only think of 3 of those players who really played on a high-level college team and had any success. And out of that, I can really only think of numbers were actually more in their favor. There were 2 people that I can think of from our school that went on to play NFL football, and only 1 that I think is still in the league and he doesn't even play much. And that's not to discourage you. It's not to tell you that sports, band, choir, those types of activities, it's not to tell you that they're not important. They are. I love sports. I've played sports my whole life. But what I'm telling you is very few of you will go pro in sports. Very few of you are going to make a living off of sports. So maybe try to dedicate a little bit more of your time to something that you are going to go professional at. And that is the stuff that you'll learn in your classes, the academic side of things. Because almost all of you are going to go pro at something that's academic related. So my advice to you would be to treat school like a sport. The more you work hard, the more you practice, you're going to get results. If you work hard, if you practice, if you treat school like a sport, and you put as much effort into working at school as you do your sports, I think you'll see a lot of success. And I think you'll find that your grades go up. This is essentially what we call the sports analogy, by the way. The idea that school is just like a sport, and the more you work at it, the more you practice, the better off you'll be. Questions?